I'm Andy.
And I'm Lindsay. Welcome to E-commerce Marketing with the Pitbulls, where we try to cut through the noise and simplify digital marketing for authentic brands looking to make more sales online.
Today, we're going to be discussing a topic that we hear quite a bit from a lot of clients and different people that we work with. The first question we always kind of hear is Google Ads right for my business? So obviously, we always like to work with folks that we can help to be successful and get a ton of sales and really scale up on Google Ads. But it's not for everybody. Sometimes, you'll turn on Google Ads and it just doesn't work. So how do you know before you get started, before you put a ton of money at risk, whether you have a pretty good chance of success on Google Ads?
Yeah, so we've got some really great tips today. Like Andy said, we hear this quite a bit from our clients and from people just reaching out with questions. So we've got one very special gift at the end of this for those people who are questioning. So stick around after. But our first tip that we've got is to ask yourself, do you have your products listed on a site that's actually designed to convert? So what we mean by that is, initially, we're talking about, are the images there? Are they clear? Do they show off the product? Are they aesthetically pleasing? Do they make people want to purchase? Do you have all of your products lumped into collections that make sense, that help bundle, that help people purchase what they want? Is the copy clear? Does it describe the product as it is? Is it also pleasing and interesting and exciting and making people want to purchase? And are the titles for your products optimized? So that's a piece that a lot of people don't think about. They maybe name items of clothing after people's names, and they think that's just enough and that people will understand what that means with that product title. And while it's creative, it's not very clear. It's not very helpful for the consumer. So is your website actually designed with the customer in mind? That's another way to look at it. And is your website on a platform like Shopify that makes it easier, that has a seamless process from looking at the product to purchasing to getting your shipping notifications, et cetera? Think about the entire purchasing process. Is it easy for the customer, and can they just find your product and make it work? That would be our first tip.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point and something that we see a lot. You can have the best product in the world, but if it's not clear kind of what you're selling when the customer gets to the site, especially if you're doing something like clothing or a really high quality thing that's focused on texture and look and feel, I feel like that's a great part where images are really important. Make sure you have close-ups, all of those types of things. The idea, almost think of it like your customer is buying in a store. What are the questions that somebody's going to ask when they're going through. And then similarly, when they get ready to check out, like if you walk up to the checkout line and there's 15 people in front of you, you may say, I'm not going to wait 20, 30 minutes to make my purchase. And it's the same way on your site. If somebody adds something to their cart and you have to create an account first before you can, get into the checkout step. There's all these different areas of friction. And as Lindsay mentioned, that's why we love Shopify, because it kind of takes a lot of those out. There's some other platforms too that work well as well. But I think, for my money, Shopify is really the best in the business at just taking a lot of those very basic things, making a frictionless path through. So number one step is get your products listed on an attractive website that's designed to convert. Number two is, do you have the capacity to ramp up sales? So a lot of times people think, oh, great. So, I've got my website set up. I've got my products listed. I'm just going to turn on, Google ads, Facebook ads, whatever they're going to turn on, and bam, we're going to have some profit. But it's important to remember that once those sales come in, you still have to fulfill them. So make sure that you have enough inventory that you can scale up appropriately. Make sure that you have shipping processes that you can get the items out the door in a reasonable amount of time. These days, people really, Amazon has broken us for the quick turnaround, 2-day shipping type thing. You don't necessarily need to hit it that quickly, but certainly, the item should be out of your hands within 1 or 2 days, and then, get it into the postal service. I always like to tell a story on this point. I had an ice cream vendor that we were working with, great local ice cream vendor, and they were starting to sell a little bit online. And what they were doing was basically using their trucks that they would send out locally in the summertime. They had 1 or 2 trucks. that they would then in the wintertime use it to make local deliveries. So you could get, a few pints of the ice cream at your house, which is great. The problem was, one, they really only wanted to take a ton of orders, or really only wanted to take orders in general in the wintertime. And turns out people don't really want a ton of ice cream in the wintertime. So that was problem number one. And then problem two was, because they were kind of using this other channel to, repurpose their trucks and repurpose their drivers to get the sales out, they only had capacity for 30 sales a week. So it's kind of like, well, we can turn on ads, but if you can only sell, even if we sell your full capacity out, it's still not going to really make up the cost of your ads. There's not really much we can do there in terms of getting started, because there's no room to scale really. So definitely just make sure that you have the inventory, you have the ability to ship, you have, hands on deck if somebody has a problem and you need customer service to start answering questions, all of those types of things that, folks are going to expect from, a store that they're ready to do business with.
I think that's such a great point. And customer service is key. I know we've mentioned it in videos past, but to me, that's sort of the biggest one. Do you have like a customer service plan already in place for when people email and maybe you haven't thought of something in your purchase process and something goes wrong and now customers are waiting for their orders, or, it's a, shipping issue that's happening? Have you thought about what you would say to people when they say, where's my order? Or what's happening? You haven't sent me the shipping notification, or it got lost in the mail. What do I do now? If you haven't thought about that, definitely think about that before you start adding more people into that pipeline. We just purchased a collectible that I actually purchased before Thanksgiving. And we had been emailing this company to say, hey, we haven't got any shipping notification. What's going on? And it took 2 months for someone to get back to us. And we only just now got the shipping notification, I think yesterday or the day before, that something's actually being sent. So we were real close to a chargeback at that point. So yeah, make sure your communication is clear and that you know how to handle these problems, because they will come up.
It's a great point.
So for the next piece seems like the most basic, but you would be surprised. And I think, when you're starting your own business and you're just like really in it, you may not be thinking about this, but are you measuring where your traffic and purchases are coming from? That's a key question. And if you're not, you should be on Google Analytics and you should be getting that installed into your website immediately. And it's a free service that Google provides that you can just start collecting data almost immediately as soon as you get that set up. And even if you don't know what to do with the data, just get it set up and then talk to some people like us who at least know what to do with that data when it starts coming in. But you would be surprised how many people they were like, I don't really understand that. I don't know how it works. I'm just not going to deal with it. And then sometimes are years into their business before they think about it again. And they have missed out on years of data that would be so valuable to be looking at.
Definitely. I think that's a great point. Just start collecting the data. It's a treasure trove of information. Even if you're not a numbers person and, your eyes kind of go sideways when you log into the account and look, Google Analytics is super easy to set up, especially if you're on something like Shopify. It's just a settings configuration. You don't even have to install any code, anything like that. If you're on different types of platforms, it's still fairly straightforward. There's a million guides online of how to get it set up for each point. But the point is there's a lot of complexity there, or there can be a lot of complexity, a lot of really deep insights that you can pull out and a lot of real power. But if that's overwhelming to you, just get it set up. And at the very least, you can start to see like, hey, I got 100 users to my site this week. If you don't know that basic type of information, it's really tough to make decisions around, is it worth paying money for more users coming in, and especially as people get started and they've been running a site for a little while, maybe you're not running any sort of advertising. You only have one or two sources. So there, maybe you're kind of getting by without having a lot of this data on where things are coming from. You just assume that, hey, the only real place where people are coming in is from, say, Google search or from organic social outreach. If that's the case, you might, not worry too much about your attribution. But now if you're trying to invest and trying to put some money against Google ads, you really need to know where all of that traffic and all the purchases are coming from. Otherwise, you have no way to measure, whether it's working or not. And you don't want to be spending money, a couple weeks in and realize, hey, I've spent, a couple $1,000 and maybe it worked. Maybe I got some purchases. Maybe those purchases would have come in anyway from some other source. who knows? And then you can't make any good decisions. So absolutely, absolutely, absolutely get your analytics in place. There are some other places you can get it from. Shopify has their own, in-platform analytics. There's some other third-party tools you can install. We love Google Analytics because it's free and it's super powerful. There's a million things you can learn from your Google Analytics data. But whatever you do, make sure that you have good analytics and you're measuring, where your traffic's coming from and who's making purchases.
Yeah. And I kind of just want to underscore that point that you made, because when you do start running ads, you may be tempted to say, oh, the ads are only bringing in this amount of users. I'm not really sure if it's worth it. When you have those analytics set up, you're able to see what we call the default channel groupings, where it breaks down your traffic and even your purchases by where these people are coming from, whether it be paid social, organic social, direct, or referral. So maybe you have a mention in a magazine that really sends a lot of traffic your way. You're able to track who's purchasing from where. And so then you can really make better decisions around whether, Facebook ads are working for you or are Google ads more profitable. If you don't have any of that information, you're really just going by a guess. And that's not a great place to be.
Definitely. So the next point we have, our tip number 4 here, is make sure to get some sales coming in through other channels first. So sometimes people will come to us and they just set up a Shopify site and they literally have 0 purchases. And they say, okay, let's turn on Google ads because we got to get our first purchases, right? They got to come from somewhere. That's not a terrible way to think about it. You do need to have some traffic coming in. You need to have some purchases to start making some decisions. The challenge with that is everything that we've talked about up to this point, having your products listed on a good site that's well designed, gives customers all the information they need, and is designed to convert. Whether or not you really have the capacity for customer questions, for shipping, for inventory, all those pieces, and making sure that all your measurements in place and that everything's actually working the way you expect it to. You can't really know that until you've tested it a few times. So you've got to get some purchases coming through. Obviously, you can make some test purchases yourself, but that doesn't really test all of those factors the way that having real customers come in. So the other big piece of this too is we can take that data of customers coming through and send that back to Google and start to say, hey, these are the customers that have hit my website. Of those, these are the ones that have actually purchased. And Google can actually use that information in targeting to start to say, okay, well, now I know what customers who actually purchase look like. Let me show your ads in front of more people that are set up like those people. So that will help you to be more successful when you do finally turn on your ads. Not to mention the email list and the customer data that you'll also be growing in that point. So I think it's really important, get some purchases through, build your internal email list, build your internal customer list. And then all of that is going to help you a ton when you actually go and start running paid ads. And if you say, hey, I don't know how to do this. If I'm not running Google ads, where am I going to get those purchases from? Some of the things, whether it be organic social, start posting on some of your socials, get some purchases coming in that way. Obviously, if you have a brick and mortar store, hand out a business card with the website address with every purchase that you're giving out. You can even get to the point, like, honestly, you could show up outside of a local supermarket and let people test your product if it's the type of thing they could test. Like, whatever you need to do, or flea markets that you could go to sell your product, different pop-ups, things like that. Whatever you can do to make sure that you have some people coming in through the site, some purchases coming in, that's going to give you a lot of information prior to starting to really put a bunch of money against this.
Yeah. And don't forget influencer marketing too. If you have a cousin who happens to have 1 million followers, hawk your product, give it a shot and see what kind of traffic will come through that way.
Yeah, we'll say I think friends and family on that. Don't put any money against it. If you don't have any purchases yet, please don't pay somebody hundreds of dollars to hawk your website. But that is a great point. Yeah. If you work your network, hey, maybe you're on LinkedIn and you just happen to have, X amount of followers from your past life before you started this business. Launch it, show them your product.
Exactly. I was going to mention too, another really important piece about having other people test it for you is, as a founder and as someone who's just in it all day, every day, there are going to be blind spots just naturally to this process. So a big piece that you want when you are having friends and family test this out, have some of them do it on mobile, have some of them do it on their tablets, and then have some of them do them on desktop. You want to make sure every access device or device for every, let me start that. Let me start that sentence again. You want to make sure every device that people could potentially buy your product through is a seamless experience, regardless if it's desktop, if it's mobile, or a tablet. So have them try it out in the way that they like to shop, and then get feedback from them about how that process worked, because you could think it works smoothly just for the way that you purchase things, but maybe your ideal customer who you happen to have in your network actually likes buying things with their phone, and they like really easy checkout processes. And if your checkout's just a little too difficult, you might be missing out on a ton of sales. So really reach out to your network and have them give you full feedback and try it in every way that they can.
Definitely. I love that.
So our last piece is, do you know what your goals are for Google Ads? So we've talked about this quite a bit recently, that it's usually one of the biggest questions we ask when we talk to people initially, and they almost never have an answer for it, which is quite surprising. So do you know what you want when you start running Google Ads? One big thing to think about, or I guess several big things to think about in this first bullet that we're talking about, is, do you know your margins? Do you know the geographic information? Do you know the demographic information? Are you targeting new versus existing customers or returning customers? You need to have all of those answers, even though it kind of feels like a lot of times people will say, I just want purchases. I don't care where it comes from. That's fair enough. But it's important to at least have the answers to those questions so that when you are testing, you at least know if you're going in the right direction. I know that Andy has a really great formula to use for this. And so I'm going to let him take it away with this one, because it's just a great formula.
Yeah, I think that, so from a goal perspective, oftentimes people come and you brought it up perfectly there. People say, I just want more purchases. So perfect. Bring in more people, more purchases. But you need to get clear on, start thinking through like, okay, well, how much am I willing to spend per purchase, and then beyond that, how much am I willing to really put at risk? Well, it might take, 2 or 3 months to really get your Google Ads up and running and humming. Am I able to invest the, monthly budget for those first couple months before you're really profitable, really getting a ton in at your goal? Are you able to put that money at risk? If you say, hey, I only have budget for, running ads for 1 week, I'd say absolutely don't do it, because chances are you're not going to find great success in that first week. And then, you've wasted your money. You don't really know whether the channel is going to work for you or not, because you didn't give it enough time to really figure that out. But then starting to think through so then the next question that people say is, okay, well, what should my budget be? What does my budget need to be? And the most basic answer is, what are you comfortable with? What do you have on hand? Knowing that this might take a couple months to get things going, don't spend money that you can't afford to lose or can't afford to spend on this. But then getting a little more specific, we want to make sure that we're feeding enough data back into the model that we can kind of learn and Google Ads can start to optimize and hit the people that are actually going to buy your product. So we're really looking for between 30 to 50 purchases per month per campaign. So as we're getting started, we're just testing out 1 or 2 things at a time, 1 or 2 campaigns at a time. Let's really shoot for at least 50 purchases per month. So from that, you can kind of back out with your average order value and say, okay, well, really, if we're humming along, everything's working great. A lot of businesses, kind of our main target that we shoot for is, 3.5x ROAS is the term, but essentially revenue divided by your ad spend. So if you have you're putting in $1 in ad spend, you're getting out $3.5 in revenue. So if you start to think that, hey, that's your target, and maybe for you say, hey, that's not profitable for me, I need that target to be higher, which is okay. Some businesses are in that boat. That can be harder to scale, but we definitely work with businesses where they are able to get a 6 or 7 ROAS sometimes. But in any event, if you say, okay, so what is your target ROAS? Let's discount that a little bit, knowing that, in the first couple weeks or months, it's going to, take a little time to get up to that target. So say we're shooting for a 2x ROAS. So every dollar in ad spend, we're getting back $2 in revenue. Multiply that by your average order value. So basically, or divide your average order value by that number. Sorry. So if you make $100 per purchase, divide that by 2. So say, hey, we should be putting in $50 in ad spend to get our $100 in revenue. And then we want to do that 50 times. We want to get 50 purchases in. So multiply that number by 50 to get your monthly spend. So that's average order value divided by 2, multiplied by 50. And that should give you a reasonable starting point for I would call it your minimum budget for the first month. So if you don't think you can afford to put that up for a month to really test out this channel, then maybe it's time to go back to the drawing board and try some other things. Maybe try something that's more person-to-person marketing, different ways that maybe are less scalable, but will help you to get your business started and kind of get things up to the point where you're able to put in the money for your paid channel. So again, I would say basically take your average order value, divide it by 2, and multiply that by 50 to kind of figure out, a minimum place where you want to start to make sure that you're sending enough data back into the model to allow the model to learn and optimize and really give it a chance to succeed if it's going to be able to succeed.
Yeah, such a fantastic formula for people just starting to figure this out. And I think it's so important to underscore that this is a test. Your product might not be great for Google Ads, and you won't know really until you try it out and give it the chance that it deserves. And in order to do that, you have to have the budget for it. So just keep that in mind, that this is all really just an ability to test if this is going to work for you for the first couple of months.
Definitely. All right. Well, Lindsay, where can people go if they're still have some questions, they're not quite sure what to do next? Or if they are and they want to kind of figure out whether Google Ads is right for them. Where can we send people?
So you can go to ppcpitbulls.com/assessment to download the digital marketing maturity assessment right there on the page. That's a PDF document that you can walk through, and it goes through all of the points that we made in this video and then some, and gives you some case studies to look at to see where your business falls. It's really, really custom tailored, easy to go through and decide, okay, I think I'm at this step. And then depending on what step you're at, you can decide, okay, I'm ready to go to the next level, or I still have some work to do depending on the considering the recommendations that are in the assessment. So we kind of give you a checklist that you can go through and say, okay, I got these 3 checked off. I still have 4 more to do, or, hey, I got them all checked off. I'm ready to go. So if you need some help along that process, feel free to reach out to us. You don't have to be at a certain level in order to reach out and get some help. We've got a lot of great things that we can offer. So you can sign up for a free call and then we can go through it with you. Or you can just take the assessment, and we've got a lot of great information right there for free to take. So go to ppcpitbulls.com/assessment and you can download it there.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. That's a really simple checklist. It's simple questions, check the box, see where you're going. And everything we talked about today is kind of the first level. Like, hey, does it even make sense to even get started with this? But we have kind of multiple levels in there. So are you ready to kind of take your digital marketing to the next level? Kind of wherever you are in your marketing journey, this should help you to assess that and figure out what your best next step is. So really, really powerful tool. Hope you'll come and check us out. So that's all we have for today. We're discussing how to know whether Google Ads is right for your business and whether you're ready for Google Ads. Some of the main things to really focus on: make sure that your website is up to date and it's both gives the customer enough information about your product to be able to make the decision to buy, and then also has a pretty seamless checkout process, makes it easy, frictionless to find the right product and then make that purchase. Do you have the capacity to fulfill any purchases that come in, whether it be, your inventory, your processes, your customer service? Make sure that you're actually able to take the sales that you want to start paying for. Are you measuring where your traffic and purchases are coming from? Data analytics is the number one thing here. You've got to know where every single purchase is coming from, where all of your traffic is coming from, so that you can start to decide, what's working, what isn't, make better decisions in your marketing. make sure you're getting some sales coming in before you start paying for traffic. I don't like the idea of just paying for traffic off the bat when you don't have any sales at all. So whatever it takes, whether it's friends and family, whether it's, your local craft fair, whatever it is, get a few purchases coming in through the website prior to turning on anything else. And finally, make sure you're really crystal clear on what your goals for Google Ads are, your goals and your budget. If you don't know kind of where you want to be and what you're trying to do, you're just going to be throwing money against the wall and not really knowing whether it worked or not. So you want to, before you even start, make sure you have a pretty clear idea of how you're going to measure success and whether or not this is working for you. So hopefully you found that helpful. If you have any further questions, go on and download our assessment. Otherwise, you can also reach out and chat, and we're always happy to have a conversation and learn a little bit more about your business.
Yeah, and you can find me and Andy on LinkedIn. Andy's always posting really great tips, so be sure to check that out, as well as subscribe if you're not already subscribed, because we give digital marketing tips for e-commerce stores much like this. But thank you so much for watching, and we can't wait to see you next time.